Well, I was shocked when you guys mentioned Herbie when he came out. I was trying to listen to his comments as you were bringing me on there, so I apologize for being a little ill-prepared there. But it was funny. He was like a concession speech. He was conceding that even Florida State's in if they win. He goes, because he said Washington, Oregon to take care of each other, and of course they have to be in at that point. So the fact that he is even saying that tells me, the slight little bit of fear we had in the back of our minds, I can't see it. Sure, we'll be a little nervous. It's like the selection show. You just want to make sure you're in for basketball. You're in if you win the game. Of course, we would rather look. I think Oregon's going to win. I don't know if you guys have brought that up yet. I think Oregon's the better team. I think they're going to win it, so everything's moot. I think Georgia's going to win too. So, I mean, all this so-called nightmare scenario, I think, is all going to be completely moot anyway. FSU is going to be in. The thing is, take care of business. Win the ACC championship, good things will happen. What I'm curious, and I think we all agree sometimes there's a little bit of shenanigans involved in the committee and kind of how things are placed. I'm curious because the lowest seed or the highest seed, I want to say, gets the choice of venue. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I'm guessing Georgia will be number one. Yeah. So I assume then they would pick – if they beat Alabama, I can't see anybody jumping them. I mean, Michigan beating Iowa, come on.
Yeah, it's not strong enough. Yeah,
so correct. It's not. So they're going to pick the Sugar Bowl. Where are they going to put – and that means Michigan will obviously want to be – and Michigan wants to be in the Rose Bowl anyway, but you would want that Pac-12 team to be out there with them. Yes. Right? So, I mean, that it sure looks like it's setting up for Florida State. Corey's going to get his wish, Florida State, Georgia, if they win in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, well, it's almost, Gene, like Kirk didn't believe what he was saying a week ago when we were on here because there's a concession speech now. It's almost like it was more Hollywood than anything else. But really? I would say, guys, and Aslan, your thoughts on this, but for me, a personal rooting guide for this weekend starts Friday night, and it starts with Oregon. Because if Oregon wins, Florida State gets off of the seed line with Georgia. I know that what Gene's talking about, where they might like to pair teams if they possibly could. Yeah. But I think by merit alone, having 0 in the loss column, Washington would lose and be moved out of it. I think Florida State being a number 3 seed gets them a matchup with Michigan. If you're trying to survive the semifinals, you've got to do so by avoiding Georgia. You don't want to play Georgia with Tate Rodemaker at quarterback. So for me, the personal rooting guide, it would be Oregon over Washington. Do you agree, or do you say, nonsense, bring me all that noise? Because if they can beat Georgia, then they can beat anybody. Might as well get them out of the way.
Yeah, get them out of the way early, right? And just coast into the national championship game. No, I'm with you. Yeah, Oregon beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. Florida State moves to number 3. Oregon sneaks into number 4, and then that puts number 2 Michigan playing number 3 Florida State in Pasadena. And that is, I know you're not going to have nearly the amount of crowd support you would have if you were in New Orleans, but man, I'll take less support, less talented team over more fan support facing the more talented team in Georgia. So, and another interesting thing too about the, Gene's doomsday scenario that I talked about too, about Alabama maybe being able to jump in there if they beat Georgia as an SEC champion, and then Georgia staying in there as well. Ohio State dropped 4 spots losing to Michigan. So I think if Georgia were to lose, Georgia's going to drop enough spots to where they would, SEC champion is going to make it, and it's just going to be that singular team representing that conference, I would think, based on what Ohio State's dropped to now.
Yeah, Gene, 2-part question. Number 1, would you agree that we're all rooting for Oregon on Friday night? And then secondly, let's say Alabama does score the upset Saturday evening. Let's just say they do. But Texas also wins the Big 12. Do you think that the committee could possibly, in that scenario, elevate Alabama past a Texas team that it lost to by multiple scores at home? Or would the SEC be left out of the college football playoff in 2023? What do you think?
Do we live in a world where the SEC champion is going to be left out of the playoffs? I wish we did, and we probably should, because in that scenario, Tom, I think you're right. And we've had the discussion about LSU, how they've kind of discounted that game because it happened in September. I hate that. Those games need to matter, or why schedule? Just schedule a bunch of bums in September if they're irrelevant. That game happened. Alabama got schooled at home by Texas. That's the head-to-head. Texas should be in. I don't think that there's any argument against that, except for the SEC bias. And, if you meet the mighty Georgia, a 2-time chance by default, if you beat them, if you beat the champion, you're in. I'll realize that's probably what's going to happen, even though that should not happen. And I'm sorry, what else did you?
The other was just Oregon. You agree? Like get away from Georgia in the semifinals.
Oh yeah, I love a matchup against Michigan.
Yeah.
You know, you get to the finals, you know, sure, it's mighty Georgia. If that ends up happening in that scenario, I'm fine. Man, you get the finals. Michigan doesn't scare me. I think FSU's defense has played well enough. That game's going to be close going into the fourth quarter. Give me Florida State against any team in the fourth quarter. We've seen how well they play, how resilient they are. I would love to see that scenario against a Michigan team. I think FSU wins that going in. So put in a one game, anything can happen. So I'm all for that scenario. Again, I think they're going to find a way. I just can't see them not matching up a Pac-12 in a Big Ten team, but it would be weird to see Oregon jump Florida State. Yep. But knowing what the committee's done in the past, I can't say it would shock me because they say, well, FSU's in, they really can't complain. If there's going to a one-loss team's going to jump Florida State, in my mind, Oregon is the only one that can do it. And the reason why is look at their resume. Look at who they beat, and they've blown out good ranked teams. Washington can't say that. You know, Alabama they lost again, multiple touchdowns at home to a good team, but nobody, I mean, if anybody saw that first Oregon-Washington game, it was a barn burner. Either team could have won that, and that was obviously a quality loss. I hate to use that phrase, but it was. I've been really impressed with Oregon. If that scenario and they go out and win by a couple touchdowns, Tom, it would not shock me to see them jump FSU to number 3. But yeah, but I think they will wiggle. That's wiggle room for them, so they can try to get that Pac-12 Big Ten matchup in the Rose Bowl.
Aslan, we go to Charlotte all the time. It's usually in July. Now we get to do so in December. You're looking at this one and saying tunnel vision, right? And be entertained by the other football games, but if Florida State wins, then start booking your arrangements for January 1st in the playoff, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to me here like in the last 24, 36 hours, but like I'm being honest, man, like I'm not playing TV, I'm not playing radio on here. Like part of me was really concerned that if, you know, I think Alabama beating Georgia to me would be that scenario where both of those teams would get in. Listen, I don't care about the Alabama-Texas head-to-head. I know it was a real game. I know it happened. It was 2 months ago. It was eternity. I don't think the committee was going to give it nearly as much weight as, you know, the AP and the coaches did 2 months ago when it first happened. So that was like my big fear. But just looking at how low Alabama still is on tonight's poll, hard to believe that both of them would be able to stay in the top 4. Not saying that Alabama wouldn't get in. I think the SEC champion gets in no matter what, but both those teams getting in, that would be my fear. That would keep an undefeated Florida State out. But the way it's all lined up in a range, I can't see the calculus that lets Florida State or leaves Florida State out after they're able to be victorious on Saturday night. So feels good, man. Feels real good.
A lot of content from tonight's program. Most of it, in fact, I think will appear on the Wake Up Warchant feed tomorrow. Is that correct, Aslan? Okay. Right. That is where you can find, if you just joined us for a portion of tonight's program, to the 1,100 plus who have been here. We appreciate you making your way over to Warchant TV. Might you want to happen over to warchant.com and become the elite of the elite members at warchant.com? It's a service called Warchant Gold. And these are the benefits: an ad-free experience all the way around on the website, 15% off of every purchase for the length of your membership at Garnet and Gold. 15% off. That's 5% over the standard warchant.com membership. Access to the Renegade Room. It's a forum that is so amazing that even our own Jeff Cameron posts in it. It's unbelievable, folks.
I didn't know who that poster was.